And we're back with another NBA observations right here on the Lakers Fast Break podcast. Truly appreciate you joining me. It is, of course, Gerald Glassford. Cannot thank you enough for supporting us right here at the Lakers Fast Break. Please like and subscribe. Go ahead and make sure you click on that notification button because absolutely we'll get you the latest episodes. If you're a member, you get this early, but even if you don't, you'll get the latest episodes brought to you within a few hours right here at the Lakers Fast Break podcast. But it wouldn't be an NBA observations without another great NBA observer and basketball observer. Indeed, he is back for more. It says he wants to be here on a regular basis, so we are going to accommodate that request. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today for the J Notes. Right there for him, part of the Fan-Sided Network. It is, of course, Matt John. Matt, great to have you back on the show.
Well, it's great to be back. I appreciate you extending your offer. I'm very excited to be on a regular basis going forward. Not obviously daily, but thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because again, I'm hoping, like for instance, my good friend Rafael Barlow, who one time, he was getting into the mix with podcasting. I reached out to him because I was looking for help and draft coverage with my pop culture show at one time. Started talking with him. His career took off, and now he got a job with the Dallas Mavericks. So it's all worked out for him. But I've been just and so anytime I can talk NBA with somebody, I'm just truly excited for that. And with the draft coming up, you and I talked about just before the show. We talked about as far as the thoughts process, and I talked with Caleb earlier this week about when do you check it out the draft for a casual fan, and we already said now because there's so many great matchups happening, getting close to tournament time. But as someone who is a casual observer of the draft for now, Matt, like you and I, um, especially for someone who covers a team like you do with the Utah Jazz so closely on a day by day basis, how interesting is it and how excited are people, like you've talked about last week in regards to their enthusiasm for what's up ahead for the Jazz, to add on an integral piece of that lineup?
Well, it's funny you ask because the focus this year with the Jazz has not been so much on what prospects should they get. It's actually been more about can we keep the pick, because now they're pulling out all the stops to make sure that they keep that pick away from OKC, which is why the Thunder made a huge stink a few weeks ago. They're like, yeah, we know what you're doing. We got to put a stop to this. But anyway, like,
Oh, you mean Nikola Jokic's season-ending nose surgery? I just, everybody has a season-ending surgery planned right about now.
Yeah, I'm a little curious about that. A little curious as to why that couldn't wait until April, but that's up to the Jazz. Yeah,
I have a bad back. Can I go ahead and ask the Utah Jazz for me to have a season-ending surgery on it?
I have a perforated septum. Like, I've had one for years. If I had the money, of course I'd go fix it. But but yeah, like they definitely are pulling out like no one's really. Honestly, the vibe I'm getting from fans isn't really, oh, we're so excited about getting that pick. It's more, you got to keep that pick more than anything. And I don't know if you heard about Lauri Markkanen earlier today. He got hurt.
Yeah.
He's getting an MRI on his hip and his ankle.
Legitimately, by the way.
Legitimately. It does sound like this happened. But the question to me is it really bad enough that he's going to be out for a while, or are the Jazz going to be like, oh, yeah, it's so bad, but they're kind of going to strategically make sure that he misses those games. So, I mean, I think we talked about this last time of like, there's going to be a lot of front court guys coming out, and the Jazz don't really need a front court guy. Their front court is pretty much set. I mean, it is making the rich richer if they add another front court piece. I'm looking forward to seeing, because there are a couple of guards coming out, and I do think there are some intriguing prospects like DeBonsa and Peterson. But if the Jazz are put in a position where they have to be put with where the best prospect available is someone, a player who plays in a position that they don't need. What if they trade down? It could also help reduce cap space, because they are going to be, with free agency coming up, they've got Jaron Jackson Jr. on their payroll now, and they're still going to have to pay Walker Kessler, and I'm pretty sure they're going to do they want to keep Nurkic for next year. That's another thing. Sorry to babble, but I was kind of curious about the fact that Nurkic has this season-ending nose surgery in a contract year. Like, part of me thinks that he opted for that because there's already an understanding that he will be back with Utah next season.
And also the fact that he got 3 straight triple doubles just before this happened. So, yes, leaving out on a high note. And again, it's so funny. Like we talked about last week, the journey of Yusuf Nurkic to afterthought to bounced around, kicked around the league, and then all of a sudden, oh, he can play after all. What do you know? What do you know? But I don't think as a backup though. That's because that's what the plan is. I don't know. Is he a backup in Utah? Will he like that?
I think he will. I think that he's actually been quite a, how do I say this, quite an exciting story in Utah, because when that trade was first announced, everyone was like, what you traded Colin Sexton for Nurkic? Like, when the Jazz didn't need a big, like, everyone knew Sexton was gone. Like, once they drafted Walter Clayton Jr., everyone knew Sexton was out of there. But trading him for Nurkic, there was a fair argument that the best resolution was just waiving Sexton instead of trading for the more expensive Nurkic. But then Walker Kessler's out for the season, and Nurkic, like, even if he's definitely not Portland Nurkic, he is still a very, very productive player. He's still an excellent rebounder for his size. A rim protector, he is not. But he is actually very good at passing out of the high post, and he's not too bad doing post scoring. He's still a large body, and I do think that Hardy kind of wanted to show through it through he wanted to show to the NBA that Nurkic, even if he is running out of gas, the tank's not empty.
Okay, fair enough. And it certainly doesn't look empty to me because of the way he played with Utah. I think in the right setting, he can still excel as a top rebounder. Guy could still get 10 to 15 points a game. And then with his added feature of being able to distribute, you saw that he can get you a triple double out of it. And again, in the right fitting, he would be immensely appreciated. I think he would be pretty cool as a starting lineup for the Lakers. Because we saw, like, even in last night's game with the rebounding issues that they had, I think you and I could have gotten the offensive rebounds off them last night. So again, a bigger body like that might actually want to think about boxing out would be great to add to the Lakers lineup. But I haven't yes, I can understand your thought process when it concerns like, hey, why is he leaving so early in a contract year?
Yeah, I'm very much just like, like, the other thing that needs to be mentioned is that he from the jump has embraced being with the Jazz. Since the trade was announced, he has been like, "Yay, Utah." And, like, part of me wonders also if Utah knew before the season started that Walker Kessler was going to get season-ending surgery. So getting Nurkic may have been them planning ahead of time when he got the surgery that would knock him out, because I think that may have played a part in why Nurkic was so excited of, like, hey, I'm going to be a starter. Like, I'm going to be playing the most minutes possible in starting position, which I probably was not going to get anywhere else at this point. And I think he's proven himself well enough that he may not necessarily be a starter going forward, but he's proven that he's worth more than a veteran's minimum contract.
And you're right. Most of the draft is forwards or taller or point guards. And your need, I think, as you pointed out on last week's show, is for the shooting guard position. And right now, I don't see a lot of that until if you don't get Peterson and get the number one pick or number two pick right now, because Debanza, in a lot of people's eyes, could be just as valuable as that. I kind of like what I see from Debanza more than I do Peterson. I know Peterson's extremely skilled and someone who could be an elite level player. I just question some of the other things in regards to him not wanting to play. Made a three. All right, I'm done for the game, coach. That type of deal. That kind of rubs me the wrong way for now. I mean, but there's no questioning the talent of either one of those guys if you right now from what I've seen. But with that, then you have to drop to like ninth, 10th, 11th before you start thinking about a shooting guard again. So yes, moving back in the draft could be a possibility on that. But one more question before we get into the rest of the mindset for some of these tanking teams. Your backups, we didn't discuss this last week. Filipowski and Sensabaugh. I really like those guys. I know they're flawed in certain ways, but I think they bring a lot to the game. I've seen Filipowski and Sensabaugh live at Summer League, especially Filipowski when he filled it up for over 30 and was just shooting the ball with ease from long range. I've seen the best of him, and I guess we've only seen that sporadically within Utah this season. Tell me your thoughts on the process because again, they are not going to crack the starting lineup with your full lineup intact going forward. That's pretty much been established. But how important is it for them as far as your future with them in it?
That is a good question because I think when they get fully healthy, the full front court rotation is going to be Kessler, JJJ, Markkinen, and presumably a re-signed Nurkic. Filipowski, to me, I think his peak is kind of a Nas Reed esque type career where he may not necessarily be a starter, but he can be one of those just guy who really like changes the second unit's dynamic by himself. It is going to I think like this year to me, the Jazz like they knew they were going to be bad, so they were going to throw things at the wall to see what sticks. And next season, when they try to be good, I think it's going to, in a way, it's going to be more like that. They're going to see which young guys is going to be should be part of our playoff core going forward. I am interested to see if Filipowski like if he can rise above the ranks and actually like prove to the Jazz, no, you need me around if you are truly vying for a title. Sensabaugh is kind of he was the guy who I said I look forward to the most with the Jazz because he last year a miserable season he was one of the bright spots, and even as a bright spot it's not like he lit the world on fire, but he definitely showed his scoring prowess. He's kind of had an up and down season. It's actually been more up lately, but to start the season he was pretty down. Like the other thing about him is that when he's been at his best when Utah's losing. And so that makes you question. That makes you question, like, are these numbers, are they legitimate or are they empty calories? So, like, I think Sensabaugh can score. Of course, I think the Jazz, they're higher on Ace Bailey than him. And I even think the Jazz they've actually gotten a little more, they've been happy with Cody Williams' development. He went from, what is this kid, to, hey, he's actually doing some things and doing things that we need perimeter defense, like good cuts, like that's kind of what we need from our supporting guys. So getting back to Sensabaugh, like I'm looking in the Jazz are going to be loaded on offense, and the one thing that Sensabaugh does is score. So I do wonder, I am looking forward to can he add to that or will he get in the way?
That's a good point. I think right now it's looking more like the latter than the former because, like you said, it's more, I don't want to say garbage time minutes because we have a player in Dalton Connect that feasts on garbage minute times. We've already had that tossed around when we see, because I mean, Bronny and him seemingly do well in garbage time per se, but when it comes to real time, what happens? But I've seen Sensabaugh light it up from three. He can get hot. He seems to have that ability. And I would, if I was another team, I would, if rather than being buried on the bench, if Utah's interested in moving him, I think they can get some assets for him right now.
Yeah, I think there's a very strong chance that he could be a buy low candidate if he proves that no, this guy has talent. I'm definitely not denying that he has talent. I actually compared him to Bojan Bogdanovic last year, kind of like he can score primarily because he's such a good shooter. More Jazz alumni to compare him to, like best case scenario, he's a Jordan Clarkson replacement, and worst case scenario, he's Rodney Hood. And Rodney Hood was kind of built from he was cut from the same cloth as Jeff Green, someone who was very talented but never quite figured out how to be consistent with it. And that was his most frustrating attribute was that he put up 30 points and then the next night he put up 5. And you're just like,
Mhm.
why can't you put this up every night? What's stopping you? There really is nothing stopping you. So I'm not ready to say Sensabaugh there, but I do think like I brought this up even last year. I was like, because Utah said Sensabaugh is the first Jazzman since Rodney Hood to do this, and I was like, that's not a good thing. So I am very excited to see if Sensabaugh can prove that his numbers are worthwhile.
Once again, it's Matt John. Please go ahead and support him today at the J Notes, part of the fan sided show as far as the fan sided experience right there at the J Notes. A great place to go ahead and check out the NBA and the Utah Jazz as well. So, with that, the Utah Jazz are in a mix. They're in a fight. They're in a fight for their very lives, which I know Adam Silver does not want to hear this kind of fight. But you know what? It's going on, and they're going to have committee meetings about it in March. So good luck on that one. It is, of course, the teams that are tanking now. The several teams that are out there, starting with the Kings, the Pacers, the Brooklyn Nets, the Washington Wizards, uh, the well, actually not the New Orleans Hornets. New Orleans Hornets are just doing bad, but they don't even have their own pick. Hope all is well with Derek Queen on that one. Of course, your Utah Jazz, Dallas, Memphis, Chicago. Could you say Milwaukee is tanking even
Um,
without Giannis? Could you say that?
It's funny you ask because if I'm not mistaken, they owe a pick swap to New Orleans. So if New Orleans finishes better than them, they swap, and Milwaukee technically ends up with the higher pick in the draft. They swap New Orleans, who then swaps with the Hawks.
Mhm.
So I think Milwaukee is I want to say tanking within reason, like
Mhm.
almost a lesser version of what the Jazz are doing. I don't even think the Jazz necessarily care about what high prospect they can get. They're more focused on just keep it away from OKC. That's all we want. Just making sure we have it. Like, but so I think Milwaukee's kind of operating on the same thing of like, yeah, we do want to stink without Giannis because we do. I do think. I mean, the Giannis, that's a whole discourse by itself, but I do think they want to keep Giannis. And I think, because they are pretty much out of options elsewhere, getting a lottery pick, maybe top 10, but not bad enough that they may have to swap them with New Orleans. I think that's their ideal scenario.
Well, the reason why I say that, and right now, Tankathon has Milwaukee at a solid 10. No strings attached on that one. There's no, if they were to fall and place a 10th, they would keep their pick if that's the case. But I mean, even without Giannis, they still look like a team that's trying. That's the reason why I say. And they're only a game and a half out of the play-in behind Charlotte. Amazing enough, with all the great things that everyone else said out there about Charlotte, they're only a game and a half behind Charlotte in the play-in mix, and they've won 7 out of the last 10. How's Milwaukee? So I'm like, if they're really tanking, they're not doing quite the best of jobs.
Well, that also harps on something. As someone who watched Doc Rivers in Boston and kind of thinks the hate for him has kind of gotten overblown. People forget that his calling card when he first came to the NBA was how good he was at coaching undermanned teams, at getting them to perform at their best. Like that's how he won Coach of the Year with Orlando. Was they lost Penny Hardaway and had all these blue chip guys like Ben Wallace, and somehow I think they missed the playoffs, but they were impressive enough that everyone was like, how are they this good without a star? And that convinced Tracy McGrady, Grant Hill, and almost Tim Duncan to sign with them. I think and he did the same thing with the Clippers. After Lob City dissolved and before Kawhi Leonard, that Clippers team was super fun to watch. They were well coached, like everyone bought in, and like that team was a playoff team and gave the Warriors a good fight in 2019. And I do think that's what Rivers can do for you. And I do think that's what he's kind of doing with Milwaukee right now with no Giannis.
Well, there you go. Indeed, we will see what happens. It also helps when you're feasting on some of the teams in the East, like maybe that they go through, and then you could go on a run and get builds that confidence. Plus the fact that you brought in Osman Dieng, who has something to prove, Cam Thomas, who has definitely something to prove. So when you've got guys like that have something to prove, that are also pushing the Kevin Porters of the world, who's doing really good, Kevin Porter Jr., and Ryan Rollins, who is really doing good as well. it's really hard to go ahead and say this team is not giving it their all.
Yeah, and like also Cam Thomas, like what an ingenious move to go to the Bucks. Like I think that his free agency market was pretty much dead if he had remained with the Nets because I mean I could be wrong, but it does sound like the Nets kind of signaled to him, yeah, we don't believe in you. And so he went to a team that was going to give him a chance to showcase himself that doesn't have I mean, we did talk about the drafting, but I think they want to show some form of, some form of cohesion, and they want to see some form of progress from some of their rotation players. And Thomas has actually like he's definitely been a how do I say it, a low risk, high reward kind of player for them thus far.
And with Cam Thomas, like you said, he's averaging close to 20 points since joining the Milwaukee Bucks. So yes, he has every incentive in the world to see if he can still land something in the offseason indeed. But like I said, there's still about nine-ish teams right now. I mean, I still think Portland is definitely trying. The Clippers, I don't know. I mean, they don't have a choice but to truly try because Oklahoma City could easily take away their pick. It's so funny. The one time this period I've actually hit the lottery button on Tankathon, it landed on the OKC Thunder, who had the Clippers pick for number one overall. I just wanted to let you know that as well. So I let Caleb know that, who covers the Oklahoma City Thunder. He was not surprised. It's like Sam Presti luck right there in a nutshell.
Yeah, pretty much. It's not even just I honestly think what Utah's afraid of is not just giving OKC that pick, but like with OKC about to pay taxes for their guys to keep them around, getting another rotation player would be perfect for them. And Sam Presti's track record speaks for itself.
So with that, my friend, when I talk to you about these teams that are tanking, we'll go ahead and get to the teams that are winning here in a second. One last thing on that, again, as they seem to be seemingly to jockey for position, that is, I think, the intriguing part of this. I understand the curbing and all the rules of what they'd want to do with tanking going forward, but I seriously like the intrigue. I don't like the quality of play when I see it, but I like the intrigue of these teams like a New Orleans, like the Clippers, like the Hawks, like, you know, all these teams that have, like the Utah Jazz, that have contingencies attached on to their draft picks this year. It makes things even more intriguing, even if in a year you have to worry about this low level play from what we're seeing from at least what I counted nine teams right now.
Like it is like I'm trying to I think something that with tanking, like I'm not sure if this is related to what you're asking about, but I think with tanking, like next year, from what I understand, it's not going to be as loaded. There aren't going to be nearly as
Correct.
good prospects, which means there's going to be, which is what the NBA wants. I mean, this hasn't necessarily been dictated by pick protections. It's also been dictated by, hey, we can find our next guy in this draft, and that's not a rare story. Like I feel like tanking was pretty bad in 2014 when we had Jabari, Wiggins, and Embiid coming out. So many teams were like, "No, we got to get those guys. We got to get one of those guys. That guy flips our franchise around like so easily." So it's interesting to watch in real time to see these teams that are like it's definitely not fun to see an unfold to see your team lose, but to see like I think it for the fan bases of those teams, they're not against it. They are also like, you know what, we get it. Like because the one thing that fans don't want is a treadmill team, a team that is consistently just average and never really has a way out. They'd rather lose and just have that hope by the end that they get someone who vaults them to perennial contender.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, and we'll talk more about it here in the coming weeks when it comes to the battle for the bottom, with what's going on with the tanking, and see how this may be affected by what's going on, and then ultimately with the lottery and where they fall, and should anyone lose their picks because of what mistakes they've made before previously in trades gone by. We'll positive side as far as the winning side is concerned, and that's the fact that we're heading into getting closer and closer to the final quarter of the NBA season. And doing that, my friend, when you see the fact that there are teams right now at the top like OKC who has injuries yet are able to sustain a high level. It's it's a wonder what's gonna happen when they finally get healthy, but there are teams there that number 2 team behind OKC right now is really out there. We saw the battle earlier this week between San Antonio and Detroit. We've seen some pretty interesting battles. Detroit then, after losing to San Antonio, went to New York, I believe, and played them and beat them. So, or vice versa, as far as that's concerned. So we've seen these teams, San Antonio, Detroit, New York, Cleveland, they went into OKC the other day and lost. These teams, Boston, which beat LA handily the other day as well, and also beat Phoenix with their defense, which they're showcasing off at this point. Not to mention that Jason Tatum is coming around. So again, there are teams right now definitively that are vying for a viable spot in the NBA playoffs, and it's just going to be interesting. What are some of the notes that you want people to stress or take a look at as it gets closer to this last quarter of the season?
Well, it was actually a recent subject that came up on fan-sided Slacks. We were discussing potential finals matchups, and something that that a few people brought up is the Spurs, because they've been amazing this year. I mean, they've obviously been like the NBA's most. I say not the best team necessarily, but the most impressive team, given how far they've had to climb up to get to where they are. And everyone's come up with well, they don't have experience. I do subscribe to that most NBA greats, like even the most abnormal ones, the anomalies, so to speak, they had to lose first before they, got over the hump. And but the funny thing is, like, some Spurs fans on the chat made the argument that their core around Victor Wembanyama is actually quite good. You've got a bunch of guys who can score, basically give you 20 to 30 on any given night besides Wembanyama, and that can be a pretty big weapon to have. So I guess my note from the Spurs is that even if they are inexperienced, I think there is a fair case that they are talented enough to get past they're not experienced sort of narrative, so to speak. I do think that even having said that, I do think the Spurs and Pistons, they're in the what I call the 2011 Thunder sort of phase of like yes, we have the talent to be something special. The only thing we need is just the taste of losing first, so that we know how to push ourselves to the limit. But next year, we're going to be incredible. Like you guys better watch out for us. So that might take it's funny how good they've been, and like only because of narratives is why people doubt them. And I do subscribe to those narratives, but I do think that this is just the start for them.
We'll see. I think that some of these teams like Detroit and San Antonio, which people are not everybody is solely convinced on if this is their next step now. I think they can fight for the title now. I think they have every capability to do so now. Victor Wembanyama, if he goes on a superhuman type run, especially on the defensive end in the playoffs, and they come up with something really good to support him on that, San Antonio could find themselves easily in that mix. And as we've seen, they are not scared at all of OKC has because they've dominated them in the regular season. Detroit, I think, still needs that marquee win because OKC and San Antonio both have had victories over them this season. But again, they're playing here in a minute here in OKC. Excuse me, OKC is meeting them in Detroit right now as we speak. And then later on tonight, Phoenix and Denver will play. And Denver, once they get healthy again, I wouldn't count them out either.
Most definitely. And actually, I Denver's still my pick, but I mean they just keep getting hurt, and it's almost getting. I'm almost getting annoyed by how often they keep getting hurt. Like the injury bug is just killing them every time. It seems like they're 100%. Something happens, and then they're down for the count again. Another note that I had was like as much as people laugh at like Cleveland for getting James Harden, like because Harden does have a reputation for being, a playoff dropper, I do think that Harden will probably be better for them than Darius Garland was. I do think he makes Cleveland a little tougher to stop. I'm looking forward to with these playoffs. I'm looking forward to seeing not necessarily Harden and Mitchell. I'm looking forward to seeing if Mobley can step up to the plate because I'm I am a Mobley pessimist. I am one of those guys who are just like, if you try to tell me Mobley's a guy, I am one of those. No, he's not. But again, I always have the mindset of like I'm more than happy to be wrong. I just need to see it from him, and because Cleveland traded Garland because they wanted to. It was them admitting this doesn't work, and my take on them is regardless of how Harden performs, I think you're going to see that it was more than Garland was not the only one who was the problem. So Mobley, Jared Allen, spotlights on them this time.
We'll see. He did have a non-displaced fracture of the right thumb. He is listed as day-to-day going forward. I know that's as someone who has experienced something like that in the past. Playing when I play pickup ball, that is nasty thing. I hope that thumb is not the size and didn't balloon up like mine did when it happened. So hopefully he's going to be okay. But yeah, it does not seem like it's going to be a long-term injury for him, as he's listed as questionable still for tonight's game against Milwaukee. So I'd sit him down. As much as I think Milwaukee's been playing well, I'd sit him down. But that's just me. But for one game and whatnot. But again, seeing how they've been energized with his addition, Cleveland should not be understated on that. But is there anyone else, any other team out there that you think people should take notice on that we haven't discussed?
Like it's kind of tough because I feel like people are very much paying close attention to the Celtics, for example, not just because they've been good, but because the all signs point to Tatum will be back before the playoffs start. It's not set in stone, but it feels like all of these new updates are hinting that he'll be back. But everyone knows about that. Like the Knicks, they are so enigmatic. No one can get a read on is this team a contender or not? Because one game they're amazing, the next game they're getting embarrassed. Trying to think of some of the other teams. Like I'll say this: the real shame of it that people aren't talking about, like people are crapping on Houston, and it's not that it's not deserved, but man, how much different would Houston be if they had Fred Van Vliet and Steven Adams? It's a whole different discussion with them. That's one of the situations where like, yeah, they're not. I don't see them really going anywhere, but if they just had those reinforcements for them for the playoffs, they'd be in a much better place right now.
Well, my friend, it's been another great discussion. You provided some excellent NBA observations, but before we head on out, it's time for that cheap plug. You've got to let me know on what we're looking forward to on the J Notes right there as part of the fan-sided experience.
Well, for any Jazz fans who are paying attention, if you want good, honest coverage on the Jazz, come visit us here at the J Notes. We're going to be talking about, the draft coming up. We're going to talk about free agency with Walker Kessler. Like, I think I speak for all the Jazz fan base here when I know that next season is going to be completely different from this season. That doesn't make these next 2 months any easier to stomach, but exciting times that lay ahead for the Jazz. And if you want the best coverage for the Utah Jazz, some of the best coverage you can see on the internet for the Utah Jazz, come visit us at the J Notes.
Well, I'll tell you what, it is great having you on each and every time out. I look forward to our conversation. If you're available next week, definitely want to look forward to that. But any last thoughts on the league before we head out? Any matchups you're looking forward to? I know that OKC and Detroit here in a minute or two is going to be very interesting to watch.
I'm looking forward to actually Celtics Nuggets at 8 o'clock tonight. I'm looking for Celtics are on a back to back. They just impressively beat the Suns. Without Brown, of course, the Suns were also undermanned. But I'm also looking forward to seeing this upcoming Jazz Pelicans matchup. A team that is getting less and less healthy by the game, versus the Pelicans, who just got a whole lot healthier and have everything to play for. I'm looking forward to that back-to-back matchup to see like what measures the Jazz will take to ensure the Pelicans come up with the victory. And at the same time, the Pelicans very much want to win those games. So
It's so funny because the New Orleans, like you said, they have everything to play for. They have everything to win. They're not holding back. They're not sitting guys out. Yet they're only 5-5 in their last 10. So yeah,
Well, they've
tells
won their last two and 4 of the last 6.
you.
So, and Murray sounds like they're going for it. So,
They better go for something because, again, that Derek Queen trade hopefully will not come back to haunt them, but we will see. Once again, it is Matt John. Please go ahead and make sure you check out what he's doing today at the J Notes right there, part of the fan sided experience. It's Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching. We'll be back with the Lakers post game for tomorrow night on Thursday night, but we're also coming back to you each and every week as much as we can with some excellent NBA observations.